What's going on, Mutha Truckers? Welcome to Mutha Trucker News. Email us at muthatruckernews@gmail.com. Hopefully you guys are having a great day today. Here's the thing, right? I always daydreamed about being the first to be able to interview the Secretary of Transportation or interview President Trump. But of course, I'm never able to get in contact with anybody. And so because of that, I think I've learned not my lesson, but I'm paying attention to what they're saying, right? So the other day when they were out in Texas with OOIDA, Texas Trucking Association, and Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, and he makes the comment that he hears a lot of this and that truck drivers are very vocal, and he's hearing that and he's talking about, X, right? The old Twitter. And so I don't really have a following there. So I'm going to do my best now to have to grow on X so that I can try to get to these people so that we could get some interviews and tell them the truth. Sometimes maybe they don't want to hear the truth. I'm not stating that, but for some reason I'm not able to get any of these interviews, but I am proud that at least Landline Media did get that interview. So Mutha Truckers, down below, I'll put the link, watch the whole video. Tell me what you think about this, right? So, I'll dissect this a little bit for you. And I read through some of the comments, and you tell me what you think. Do you think that he was Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, was giving a lot of PR answers and word salad type of answers, or did you feel like he was actually listening and caring? Because, when I first listened to this, of course, there's a lot of issues that he hears about. And, he pretty much states that he can't just solve the issue, because if he puts a policy that's in place that isn't going to make complete impact, then, they can't do it at all.
Right. You want to make sure the change that you make is lasting and has a true impact. And so what we're doing now is, even on, for trucker parking, we're thinking through, where do we get the resources? How do we partner? Where can we invest? So the problem is a really simple problem. But the answer becomes a little more complicated, thinking through how would we deploy a set of policies to improve parking for our truckers. And we're working on that, as well as, when we have truckers coming in from specifically Mexico, or in Canada, and having one destination, then going to multiple others, it becomes a little harder to enforce. So we're thinking through that process, and I think as we do that, we're going to get to a good place on what our rules should look like and how we can enforce them.
If you guys have complaints, keep on tagging him. I'm starting to tag him on everywhere. So I'm jumping on an X and I'm tagging him a lot as well, because we do have these major problems that we have, right? He talked about how rolling back English proficiency was easier to do, but other problems like truck parking issue and other problems like a broker transparency, which truck drivers care about, is harder for him to fix.
Broker transparency, and I heard you all talking earlier a little bit about this, but broker fraud, as you have probably learned if you didn't know before, is a huge issue out there. Broker transparency, especially. FMCSA is making some progress on that. We're seeing some action, which is very welcome. But talk a little bit about that and assure people, I suppose, that this is not going to be just the only step. It's the first step toward keeping these folks accountable.
Yeah, so it's a great question. This is an issue that I didn't know existed either on the broker side, but obviously Motor Carriers has been following this for some time. So I've had a number of meetings on this issue, and again, it gets to be a little bit complicated on how do we root out the bad players and not put rules in place that are burdensome and harmful and hurtful to the good players.
And I'm trying to think, is it really harder to fix? Because, someone made this comment down below. When you get in an Uber, after you're done with your Uber, right, you see the price points. When you buy a house, you look at you look at your contract. It tells you exactly how much the realtor is making. So what's the issue here? Why can't freight brokers tell the carrier or owner operator how much money he made off of that, right? What's the problem? Because I'll tell you this, if he makes money and the truck driver makes a lot of money, I don't see anyone complaining. I don't see anyone pocket watching if the truck driver is making what he needs on his end. And the problem that we're having is that the truck driver sometimes is taking loads for $1 a mile, knowing that they're not making any money at all. And I know that they say, hey, that's an excuse, just don't take the load, right? But at the end of the day, why does something like this even exist? I understand capitalism as well, but should there be some type of regulations where the federal government jumps in and says, hey, this is an amount of money at the minimum that a driver needs to make, at least to be able to pay for his equipment, for his service, right? And so it is very interesting on that. The biggest concern that I see that truck drivers care about is broker transparency and the hours of service. We talk about public safety, and he talks about this in this interview, and public safety is important, but the hours of service, the way it works, I almost feel like the hours of service, the ELD, just all of it all together, it more benefits the larger carriers.
What would you say to those folks who are concerned about hours of service and would like to see some changes there and some more flexibility as they try to do a job that, as you know, is a very difficult job?
So I think it's important to understand that when people come up with ideas for rules, they see it as black and white. And the hours of service can be one of those where they can think through. We got safety data, and we're going to put this policy in place, but I don't think it takes into account actually how someone might navigate a day on the road. And I'm sensitive, and I don't want to say a whole lot. I understand the viewpoint of the truckers out there on the electronic logs. Understand that as well. I get it. We have to go through a process, and again, safety is always a priority, right? And I think a lot of the comments I get are about rule changes, but also safety. Those two things are combined. Again, everyone wants to be safe. You want to come home to your family. You don't want to hurt anyone on the road. And so the comments are given to me with a backdrop, with the safety component. But we have to. There's a very specific process that we have to go through at USDOT. But maybe I'll leave the simple answer is, I get it. I understand the point, and you don't find a lot of disagreement from me.
The ELD and the hours of service benefits the big carriers, right? The only advance that owner operators have is that, hey, we could drive the speed limit. We could get the product there faster legally, right? And so, there's always that complaint. And the other thing as well is with the ELD, I mean, how many times have you started your day and then something happens, but your clock just keeps on moving, and then all that does is just stress you out and makes you want to get there faster, right? And the truck parking issue, it's a big issue, right? And so we're investing so much money on everything else. Why can't we invest more money on rest areas and maybe invest more money on helping even these truck stops, right? I'm surprised that the federal government hasn't jumped in yet and said, hey, here are grants for this. I see grants for self-driving trucks. I see grants for EPA situations. I don't see any grants helping maybe a normal guy. I had a dream of opening a truck stop and not charging for showers and not charging for parking and just trying to make it a great business for everybody. Why isn't there no big grant out there, right? I know there's the SBA loan, but I mean, come on. I mean, there's ways to help solve this issue. And, listen to this interview. Let me know what you guys think about this. Overall, I'm just glad that the Secretary of Transportation is talking to people. I am glad that he's not pretending to know something, even though when he says that, people are saying, hey, you had a CDL. He's like, yeah, but, what I did was just local work. I didn't go over the road. So he's not playing up of his experience and what he has done. And I do appreciate that. And I do appreciate that when he says that, he didn't even know that the freight broker fraud was a big problem. He didn't know that freight broker transparency was a big issue in the trucking industry and for truck drivers. And so he's learning about all these things, right? And so, I do appreciate him for being honest about that. But from this interview, what do you see? Is he giving the PR answer, or is he going to help make a big change? Mother Truckers, comment down below. But, appreciate Landline for getting that interview. Thank you for getting that word out there. And I'll put that link down below. Hey, at least they're asking the right questions. So I do appreciate that.